Welcome to the Pathways to Success. I'm Julian Placino, recruiting professional turned success speaker, show host, and media entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to helping you find your unique pathway to success by having conversations that educate, inspire, and transform. Together, we'll interview some of the world's greatest leaders and uncover their secrets to success. Thanks for tuning in, and on to the show. Welcome to episode 208 of the Pathways to Success, where we have conversations with inspiring leaders about their business and keys to success. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have a tremendous show in store for you today. Today's episode is sponsored by Code Up. Code Up is the premier technology career accelerator in Texas. Code Up teaches web development, data science, system administration, and cybersecurity. For more information on Code Up's comprehensive acceleration programs, visit codeup.com. That's CODEUP.com. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the Pathways to Success my longtime friend and mentor, and of course, CEO at Social Venture Partners of Dallas, Tony Fleo. Tony, welcome back to the Pathways to Success. How are you, sir?
Good. It's my pleasure, Julian. I'm so proud of you and all the success that you have had. So thank you for all the contributions that you make, particularly to Social Venture Partners, but to the world now. So it's awesome.
And I've said this to you many times off camera in a public setting. Knowing you personally has transformed my life in very public and verifiable ways. You helped me realize what my strengths were, and therefore I pursued opportunities that were inclined to my natural talents. And because of that, I'm doing what it is that you helped me realize. So thank you, Tony.
Well, you were very kind to give me any credit for that whatsoever. But basically, all I do is comment on my reality, and my reality was you were pretty incredible. So that was easy to do.
And even though you probably didn't realize it right now, you sort of reflected one of your superpowers about spotting leadership and nourishing it. So we're going to talk about that. But right now, I want to go ahead and jump right in to talk about our points today. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So Tony, you are the CEO of the Social Venture Partners of Dallas. Please tell our audience, what is the Social Venture Partners of Dallas?
Sure. Social Venture Partners is a philanthropic organization by nature. It has been in Dallas for over 20 some years now, and it is an organization where men and women come together with their various talents to offer pro bono consulting services to organizations that we select that are doing great things in the world. Our mission is twofold in that we grow the capacity of social enterprises, whether they are for-profit, nonprofit, even if they are in the public sector and they're doing good in the world, we want to lend our support to help them grow. And we have a great mission around education, informing basic citizens, philanthropists, individuals on what is the way that they can have the most impact with the resources that they have. And so our mission is twofold, and in light of our second mission, we host an annual conference called Big Bang here in Dallas in the fall, and we are coming up on that here at the end of October.
And tell us about Big Bang. What is the theme this year?
Sure. So Big Bang was a conference that was founded by Bob Wright, who is the founder of Social Venture Partners here in Dallas, along with some other folks back in the early days. And their idea was that they would bring together the people in Dallas locally who were working on the same things, but perhaps in their silos, and maybe didn't know that there was somebody else working on some of these great solutions to some tough problems. And so let's bring them all together for a couple of days and see what happens, what spark can turn into a big bang, if you will. So we're in our 13th year, and several years ago, we made the decision to move the conference from downtown Dallas, from the Arts District, to Paul Quinn, a historic African-American college in our city in the southern sector. And in other words, we wanted to put our money where our mouth is and say there are some extraordinary things going on in the southern sector, particularly at Paul Quinn under the leadership of Michael Sorrell. So we moved the conference there. And that has turned out to be an extraordinary win-win for all involved. This year's conference, it continues a theme that we have been dealing with for a number of years. And the theme is around equity, social equity, racial equity, gender equity. And our theme this year is around the new economy, healing our divides. How can the new economy help us to heal the divides that seem to be separating so many of us?
And why did you decide on this particular topic this year?
You know, coming out of the pandemic, we all had the chance to sit back and really reflect on what has been going on in the world. And as I mentioned, you know, I would be remiss to not mention the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas has been co-sponsoring Big Bang with us for over the last several years. And neither Social Venture Partners or the United Way has stepped back from these really difficult conversations around race and around gender and around equality. Mm-hmm. And so we have been having these conversations on the stage for a number of years, but suddenly the murder of George Floyd, the pandemic, all of these things have really shifted the American psyche to really sit up and take notice of these issues as real issues in our community. And so we're taking this opportunity to really build on the platforms that we have done over the years and to really say, okay, we're focused on this now. Let's look at solutions. So we're very focused on what are the actual solutions, what are things that are happening in the community that can allow more people to have equity in terms of access to opportunity, to wealth, regardless of what zip code they come from, regardless of what gender they are, regardless of what race they are. How can we broaden opportunity for all of our neighbors?
And what can attendees and even partners or sponsors for this event expect to get from it?
Sure. So we will be bringing in some amazing thought leaders, both nationally and locally, who are working on these issues. So the number one priority, of course, is that we hear what people are doing. We hear great thoughts. We hear innovation. We hear the kinds of things that are going to take us from point A to point Z pretty quickly. Who's working on those things? Who has some profound things to say about a way of thinking about these things differently? You know, it is often said that we cannot think our way out of problems that we've acted our way into. Mm-hmm. And so it is really incumbent upon each of us that we look at what are the actions that can get us out of some of these things. Enough of the conversations, enough about thinking through of it. Who's doing the real work? How do we lift them up? How do we get more people engaged? And so our sponsors are very supportive of all of that. We have a number of co-producers that are working with us on this project, including the Dallas Foundation is helping us with curriculum, the City of Dallas, the Federal Reserve of Dallas, the Texas Women's Foundation, EarthX. There are a number of organizations that are coming together to really help us shape content. For us at Social Venture Partners and for Big Bang, one of the tracks this year is equity around the environment, right? Justice around what are the environmental issues. We have never really taken a look at that. Of course, we have Trammell Crow in Dallas, who has been leading that effort through EarthX and has been a prophet in a lone voice here in Dallas on that for many, many years. And the world is waking up and recognizing the truth to the things that he has been leading us to understand. And so EarthX will have a track here at Big Bang on environmental equity, justice around environmental needs. So we're very excited about that. It is a new topic for many of the people in our audience. Unfortunately, we are way behind on that. But fortunately for us, we have some experts right here in Dallas who will help lead us in that conversation.
It sounds like you've brought together amazing leaders and organizations for the event this year. Tell our audience, how do we learn more about Big Bang?
So we have a website, of course. It's called bigbangtx.com. You can go to that. You can go to our website, Social Venture Partners. We will be announcing shortly, within the next week or so, our whole speaker lineup. I think it will be extraordinary. We're not going to give anyway those secrets, give them away yet. But we do hope that you'll keep an eye out for that and join the conversation. Like so many, last year we were not able to meet in person, and so we went completely digital, and we expanded our programming throughout a week. And we had just tremendous success with that. We have a partnership with the Texas Tribune now, and that has also helped us broaden our audience. And so we have decided to keep the digital component, do a hybrid. We're still hoping to meet in person at Paul Quinn. It is such an extraordinary experience for our audience to go there and to be a part of the great things and the innovations that are happening there. And so we're hoping to keep it in person, but of course we're monitoring all of that on a day-to-day basis.
And we'll make sure to have all of the contact information and details for it in the show notes, and I'm happy to promote any of that across my social media platforms, Tony.
We appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Well, Tony, I want to talk about the main topic that we'll be discussing, which is the theme of Big Bang, which is the new economy, healing our divides. And before we get into this, I want to share with our audience that this show has always been about inspiring leadership and bringing people together and really achieving the summum bonum, or greatest possible good for all people. And I realize some of the ideas that Tony and I will be talking about will maybe sound controversial, and perhaps we might not even agree on all of these topics. But I also know the value of having difficult conversations to shed light on the truth so we can create understanding and move together forward as a society. So with that being said, I ask for your patience and your grace. If Tony or myself says something that is not politically correct, it is only with the intent to uncover the truth and move forward together as a society. So with that being said, Tony, I want to jump right into things. And one of the pieces that we wanted to unpack was this idea of politicizing human issues. Where do you want to start with this?
Sure, and I think, Julian, when you brought up that great word, that Latin word bonum, I think that's a great place for us and for our audience to start. Because the very root of philanthropy implies a moral good, right? Philanthropy is the love of humankind. So we're already making a statement that we have a position, that we have an obligation to be loving to our neighbor and to the people around us, right? And so we start with that premise. And some people don't start with that premise, but that is where we start. And so we believe that there is a call, that philanthropy has a role to play in calling each of us to a higher good. And we believe that some of these things that have been politicized are really tragically really in the human interest for all of us to be on the same page. But we hear rhetoric and we get confused about these different issues, but philanthropy has to put all of that aside. And philanthropy has to say, we believe that this is for the good of humankind. It might not be the best thing for you and I individually. There might even be some sacrifices that you and I have to make. Mm-hmm. There might be some acknowledgments to our own privilege that we have had that others do not. But those sacrifices for the sake of humankind are what matters, right?
Yep.
And so we come together and we say, look, there has to be a new way of thinking about all kinds of things. There has to be a way that says, hey, we can have profits, but profits don't necessarily have to be at the center of all of our decision making. Mm-hmm. Maybe people and the environment need to be at the center of our decision making. And that is really what we're going to be looking at in this new economy. What are the ways that we can have an economy that we can move forward, that we can be financially successful, that we can open up opportunity for everyone, that doesn't always put profit at the center, but puts people at the center and puts the environment at the center. We believe that real good will happen for everyone when we do that. And so those are the kinds of things that we believe can unite us. When we all start to look at those common things that are basic to all of our humanity and what we want for future generations, those are the kinds of things that philanthropy is interested in. Those are the kinds of things that we want to move forward in the world, because we believe that love is a verb, it is an action, and we are required to move that love forward in the world.
Tony, what would you say is the most obvious example of a human issue that has been politicized that is not doing that mission any service?
Oh, there are so many of them. But when we just look at the protection of our children, right? Mm-hmm. As a grandparent now, my perspective is completely different, right? It's interesting how it changes over one's lifetime. But now I have this kind of long-term generational perspective. What will the world be like for my grandchildren's children and their grandchildren? And I think about the claims that we make around protecting children. Mm-hmm. We live in Texas, which according to many studies is the 5th worst state in the nation for raising a child. Now, we have a simple thing that we can do to protect our children right now: masks. Mm-hmm. But yet that becomes a big politicized issue. How can the protection of our children and their health be so volatile? What has happened to us over that? Something else is going on. It's not the care of our children that is at the center of that question. So moving these kinds of things, these questions back to the center. What is for the good, the common good? And again, this comes from a perspective that we believe in the common good. We believe that we all have to make sacrifices for the common good, and then therefore we will all benefit, right? And so what simple little sacrifices can we make just to protect children and their health? These should be very simple things, but yet somehow they have become explosive.
Tony, what do you think is the key to having a conversation with somebody who has a different view to establish common ground and work for the good of what you mentioned together? How do you dialogue with somebody whose views vastly differ without being at each other's throats? What do you think is the key to that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure that that's even possible in some cases. So I want to take that off the table, and I want to say, let's focus on what we can really do. You know, you spend a lot of time talking about leadership, right?
Yep.
The world needs leaders. The world needs really good leaders. And in our understanding of leadership, a transformational leader is someone who raises us all up to the next level of good, right? So sometimes it is just up to leaders to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we have leaders in positions of power who are failing us, there's very little that folks can do other than take care of those in their immediate circle to the best that they can. So I'm a big believer that a lot falls on the shoulders of leaders, absolutely, and the message that they give, because people listen to them, or they wouldn't be called leaders, right? And so they have a lot more to be held accountable for than we do individually in these conversations when we have very different positions on things. But obviously the number one thing is just to listen deeply, to listen to understand. We're trained to listen to debate, we're trained to listen to respond. These issues require a completely different way of listening, and it's just simply to listen to understand, because the deeper we understand somebody else's perspective, the more challenged we can be to our own, but also we can be more convicted and have greater insights as to why we want to spread one over the other.
What have you seen, and you're like a great leadership guy. I mean, when I say that you have been my mentor for so many years, I mean it, because there's so many attributes that you possess that I want to incorporate into my own personality. But what have you seen, or what is an action, a strategy that you've implemented that actually that changed somebody's mind positively, like a positive kind of influence? What have you done?
You know, that is a really great question, and I don't know that we ever really change anyone's mind in a sense of we offer opportunities for those shifts to take place. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot about, you know, paradigm shifts and how do we get people to see the big picture. And, you know, paradigm shifts in my own life have taken place through education. Ongoing education. You know, there are so many people that I credit with changing the paradigms and the attitudes and the opinions that I have had, but fortunately for me, most of that has come through being around really smart people teaching me new things, availing myself of conferences like Big Bang to go hear these brilliant people who have been working on these issues for years and who are great thought leaders, and suddenly you hear something and wow, that has completely changed your mind, right? So it's being in the opportunity, presenting yourself with the opportunity to learn and to grow. Sadly, though, most paradigms change when it's too painful to hold on to the old one. Mm-hmm. You know, we just have to look at the reports that we hear from, you know, COVID patients who were determined not to get the vaccine and end up begging the ICU doctor to give them the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Their paradigm has shifted, but it's shifted because of pain. That is a common experience, that our paradigms often shift because it is too painful to hold on to the one that we have held on to so dearly. So we look for opportunities to provide not pain, but education opportunities for people so that the paradigms can change and shift and our minds can shift so that we can be open to greater and greater understandings of how to achieve things.
Interesting. I heard two things. I heard number one, yes, of course, I think everyone has experienced something in their life when they were forced to change because of some massive pain. But you also said that you've actually changed your paradigm at times when you have been surrounded by smart people with great perspectives in the spirit of a harmonious conversation, and you've changed your paradigm, right?
Absolutely.
So I definitely think there can be some clues there. I want to make a message to our producer. Hey, Derek, and everyone knows Derek, he's our producer, he's amazing. Derek, we're not going to run a commercial. This time we're going to go straight through the conversation because there's so much I want to continue to discuss here with Tony. So I want to talk about this next topic, and it has to do with the root cause of social ills. I know that most philanthropic organizations attribute it to one thing, but SVP has a nuance to it. Explain what that difference is.
Well, for many good people, for many good organizations, they're attacking poverty. Poverty is the root of all evil, of all that ails us, socially. For social venture partners, we look at that a little bit deeper and we say, what is the root cause of poverty? And we believe that there are some systemic things, some systemic powers at play, and those consist of systemic racism, systemic gender inequity. Those systems are what cause poverty. And so what we do is we look for organizations that are trying to change the systems that cause these problems. So we would much rather be able to solve a problem before it happens than have to deal with it over and over and over and over again. What most people are unconscious of, what we walk around in most of the time, is this whole we don't get a good sense of these systems that are operating that have allowed us to achieve many things that don't allow other people to achieve. For many of us, we wake up on third base and, we think we've hit a home run.
Yeah.
Without any consciousness of what has gone on and all of the power plays that have gone on to put us there on third base in the first place, right? And so for many people, they don't have those same opportunities and those same systems. Why not? How do we fix those systems so that more people can enter into them and have the same opportunities? And so that's the perspective that we take on it. That's what we're looking to solve. We're always looking for innovations in those worlds and looking to support innovators in those worlds.
Tony, help me see something. I was born in the Philippines. I was raised here in DFW, right? I am a minority. I am a minority race group. And I hear a lot of the talk, and I'm certainly open to both sides of the conversation about this idea of systems that are systemic, like racism, right? I personally have not experienced, I don't think I have experienced any negative aspects of systemic racism being a minority group. Should I have experienced something by now? What do you think?
Well, it depends on what race, what group you were born into, right?
Okay.
And
there's the nuance. Got it.
There is a big nuance, right? And sadly, there was just an article in the paper yesterday in the Dallas Morning News about the suicide rate amongst minorities, and particularly the suicide rate increasing among Pacific Rim minorities because they feel like they are being, the young people, particularly it was about suicide rates in youth.
Yeah.
And the youth feel hopeless that they will ever fit in, that they will ever be completely accepted by the dominant society, right? Now, I don't know if you ever experienced any feelings like that when you were growing up, that you were on the outside of a dominant culture.
No, we had that Zoom call. Do you remember, Tony, when I said that? I remember, but I don't know if it had to do, maybe I just couldn't see. But the topic of the conversation that we had was that I do remember growing up and going to a predominantly white school. I was like, well, I could clearly see there's a difference between myself and others. And I was maybe 6 or 7 at the time. And I said to my mother, like, when am I going to get my blonde hair? When am I going to start looking like some other people? And it's like, I don't know where that came from. I really don't, right? But I can say pretty honestly that although I know, like, race and ethnicity-wise, I'm different than other people, I've used it to my advantage, right? Even when you first said, Julian, you have a great ability to communicate, I learned it was an advantage because people saw me and maybe expected something from me, right? But what came out of me was different. So I've learned to use it as an advantage. I don't exactly know where I'm getting here. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there a sliding scale? Is there a spectrum, I guess, of this?
And this is what I love about the conversation. Right now, we don't know what to get out of this. We don't know what to make out of this particular conversation. We don't know what to make out of your history. The important thing is that people have these conversations.
Right.
That they start to understand, what did it mean? What did it actually mean that I wanted to know when I would become blonde?
I'm a ridiculous kid. I don't know, man.
But I mean, it's one thing for an adult to look back on that as an adult with everything that you know now and from an adult perspective. But putting yourself in a child's perspective and asking that question, what are the ramifications for that child? And I think yesterday's article points out that there are significant ones. Yeah. And the adult world cannot turn a blind eye to that if we love children.
Sure.
If we love children of any color, any ethnicity, any race, then we need to have these conversations and we need to figure that out, because children are in our care as a society. We are the adults. We're supposed to be the ones protecting them. So having this kind of conversation, which is what we do at Big Bang, it's these intentional and deliberate conversations that we do at Social Venture Partners all the time around these issues. This is exactly what we believe move people to greater levels of good, what you and I just did right now.
Interesting. And you know, my follow-up question really was, what's the first step in healing those divides? But I think it may have emerged from here. You have to start with the premise, Tony, of like, I want what's good for all of us. Because I think what differs is the how, right? But in your opinion, I won't put words in your mouth, but what is the first step to heal our divides, do you think?
Again, the power of a conversation, the power of really digging deep into our own story, understanding our own story, understanding where we have felt like something was taken away from us unjustly. Yeah. You know, there is a human dynamic, a psychological dynamic around justice and what is unjust when something happens to us. Yeah. How do we restore justice to one another? How do we embody forgiveness? Well, there's no cheap grace. I'm sorry. Saying I'm sorry when you've made an infraction. You know, I stole $20 from you and I say, hey, Julian, I'm sorry I stole $20. Yeah. And you might forgive me out of the generosity of your heart, but that's pretty cheap grace on my part as a recipient. When I work hard to give you that $20 back that I took from you, now we're talking about restorative justice. And I think we have to understand that restorative justice, giving back what was unjustly taken from people because of their race, because of their gender, because of their class, when we start to give back and restore to them what was unjustly taken, we can actually have some healing, have some forgiveness, and move forward.
If what we just experienced here is just a small snapshot of what folks can experience at Big Bang, I mean, I'm all in. I definitely want to be a part of that some way, somehow, and to further unpack that. But I really think there was something interesting. You and I do not necessarily agree on every point, but I have love for you. You have love for me. And because of this, we're able to have a conversation and come to understanding.
And what is more important than what that love does between you and I is that when we need to advance the common good for another, I know I can call you, and together we can do better for that cause, for that person, than we could do individually. So linking our stories together, linking our purpose, linking our values, linking our commitment for the greater good is what we try to do at Social Venture Partners every day.
Wow, I got goosebumps because I feel like we really hit on something pretty amazing, don't you think?
Anytime I'm with you, Julian, it's amazing.
Tony, anything else you want to share with our audience about Big Bang before we move into keys to success?
Other than an absolute invitation to all of you to participate, we are still looking for sponsors. As you know, these things are very expensive to produce, particularly the quality with which we bring to it. So we'd love to have some additional sponsors on board, but most importantly, would love to have people participate, to learn, to join the conversation, and eventually join our work at Social Venture Partners to help bring this love to the entire community.
Excellent. Well, Tony, I want to move into keys to success, and this show is all about really giving back, sharing how do successful people become successful. And I know at this point in your life, it is more about sort of empowering other leaders, and I think that's where the theme is that we have for your keys to success. So the first is this idea of focusing on your circle of influence. Where do you want to start with that?
Sure. So, you know, when we talk about a paradigm shift, Stephen Covey was a great mentor of mine, even though I never knew him. Sure. And you can have mentors through books and through their writing and through their teaching. But in his book, when he illustrated that, you know, there are two worlds that we can live in. We can live in our world of concern. There's so much out there that concerns me. There's so much that troubles me. There's so much that makes me anxious, so much that makes me nervous, so much that concerns me that I can do absolutely nothing about because I simply do not have the power to do it. Then there is our circle of influence. Those things within our world right now that I can actually concentrate on and make a difference in. And so when we get distracted with all of the noise, we need to just sit back and say, okay, what is in my circle of influence? How do I make a difference in the things and in the people's lives that are right in my influence? How do I do that? And as I do that, I grow my power. And power is nothing more than the Latin word, which means the ability to act, right? I grow my ability to act. I might have a few wins in my circle of influence, and other people might start wanting to help me, all kinds of things, and I grow that influence. And as long as I stay working on the things that I can actually influence, then my ability grows to actually make a difference in the world as a leader.
I think another one of your strengths, and we alluded to it earlier, was your ability to identify young and upcoming talent. And especially because I have a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs watch the show, you are so awesome at spotting, recruiting, and gaining cooperation with young leaders. It's incredible. So I want to first start with this. How do you know, what are some of the things that you look for in an individual that give you such a great sort of accuracy rate of predicting someone's going to be a leader? What do you look for?
So first I want to step back and say, you know, you're giving me some credit for something that is not my own, right? So I am a great believer in the school of positive psychology. And out of that school comes a particular belief that we all have individual gifts and we all have individual talents. And whether you're a religious person or a spiritual person or whatever, some of us believe that those gifts and those talents come from somewhere other than ourselves, right?
Yep.
And we have them in a different order. So those of you that know me know I'm a great proponent of the Strength Finders assessment. And in that assessment, it says that each of us is born with a particular order of strengths. And when we live out of those top 5 strengths, we look like a rock star, right? Well, individualization is one of my top strengths. I didn't do anything to acquire it. I was born with it. It was a free gift. I can develop it a bit, right? But I have that particular strength or that particular talent, and it almost moves without me doing anything, right? So when you say I can identify a great, brilliant young talent, it really does come from somewhere beyond me, right? And so I take a little credit for that, but yet I understand that it's pretty accurate. It's not always right. I get fooled every once in a while. But by and large, I can point out somebody's extraordinary, is going to be extraordinary at some things, and but it comes from identifying and then believing in those strengths, right? Yeah. And so there are tools out there. How do we learn about those tools? Well, we come to conversations, we go to conferences, we learn that there's an assessment out there that is Strength Finders, and it shows you what your natural strengths are, and then gives you some coaching and patterns for how to develop those. Those are the kinds of things that, you know, we are brilliantly free to pursue those and follow those. And it's very life-giving when we do.
So that's actually very interesting that you said that is an innate ability. And I actually believe it knowing what I know about you, because you're a real believer in the Strength Finders. But here's one then that I don't know is a natural ability. You get these people to follow you, right? Even after they leave your organization, years after they're doing amazing things. How do you get people to follow you?
You know, I don't. Again, that is very kind, but I believe that in 2 different kinds of leadership styles, right? There is the transformational leader, and then there's the transactional leader. The transactional leader is the person who really gets their authority from their title, from their position in life. People basically have, it's this for that, you know the drill. In a transformational leadership style, it is really based on relationships. And I think the people that you say will follow me anywhere, those people know that I will follow them anywhere. They know that I will do anything for them, that there is a reciprocity in the relationship, that my interest is in them and I will do for them, and they in turn, because they are good, will have reciprocity. People are really good, Julian. People at their core are really, really good, with a few exceptions, and then it's pretty disastrous. But by and large, people are really good. And they need a little help on the way to discover that goodness. They need a little help along the way to channel that goodness. I still do for the remaining days that I have. We all do. And when we do that in a reciprocal way, people are really willing to follow one another and help one another given the circumstance.
If I could articulate why I followed you and why we continue to be friends and why I consider you that you're a continued mentor of mine, is that you helped me believe it in myself by genuinely seeing whatever it is that you see in people. You helped me believe in myself. And because of that, I grew as a leader. And that is incredible.
But you also know what you did, Julian?
What?
You acknowledge that regularly. You express gratitude for that all the time.
Yeah.
I know that you would do anything that I called and asked you to do within reason.
Yeah.
You reciprocate that. You acknowledge it. You are respectful of that. You show gratitude for that. Those are all the things that good leaders themselves do, right? You embody that yourself. And so again, there is a give and take in the leader fellowship. You know, I don't admit this often, but I am a big believer in reverse mentoring. I love having everybody's younger than me now, but I love having younger people around me because I learn so much from them and from their perspective. While they're thinking they're learning something from me, I am getting so much more out of the relationship.
Tony, we are just about out of time. If you would give us a final piece of advice, if there was one last piece of advice that you would want to give your children or future people that you want to mentor, like to grow as a leader, do this, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, there's so many things, but number one for me has been talk to strangers. One of the most rewarding things in my lifetime is just striking up a conversation with somebody on an airplane and, you know, turning into something great. The networking, I wish that I had known when I was 18 and in college and in my early 20s, the power of networking. Network, because you never know when you're building those relationships what you're going to do with that relationship 30 years from now, the good that you're going to achieve because you took the time to network and to build a relationship when you were 30 and what that's going to turn into when you're 60. Just trust in the process, trust in the conversation, trust in the networking, trust in the stranger beside you. Talk, enjoy, get to know one another. It's awesome.
I love that. Tony, final question here for you. The show is called The Pathways to Success. What is your personal definition of what success is?
You know, again, I was highly influenced by Stephen Covey in that regard, and honestly, not to disregard how important success is.
Sure.
But my paradigm shifted a little bit more to around what is the most effective I can be, and living my core values, living them in a way that I see things grow from those, from my values, from what ultimately gives meaning to my life. You know, the effectiveness that I have around conveying that and helping to bring other people into that is really the key for me.
Tony, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm so glad that you have been in my life, continue to be in it. Thank you for doing this.
My absolute privilege, Julian. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Tony, one more time, tell our audience, how do we connect with you, learn more about SVP, check out Big Bang, tell us all this.
Sure. Love to connect with you through LinkedIn, of course, but I'd love for you all to get engaged with Social Venture Partners Dallas. The people are extraordinary. The men and women that come and join Social Venture Partners give of their time, their talent, their financial resources to make our local community, very hyper-local community here, a better place for all of us. So visit our website, Social Venture Partners Dallas, and we hope to meet with you soon. Thank you.
And of course, we'll have all that plugged in the show notes as well. So everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of The Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of The Pathways to Success.